Welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. Coming up on this episode, we'll go abroad with some mixed fortunes for our Aussies playing overseas, including some great assists and a striker in form in Scotland. We've got games galore in the A-League, man, as things get pretty heated up on the Central Coast. Melbourne Victory start to fire and some 10-man heroics. In the A-League women, we've got some worldies and some fantastic support. We also have our team of the week, an Australian connection to AFCON, and some great listener contributions. It's been quite a week, hasn't it, Mopper?
Well, we've seen out the year 2025 and went bang straight into 2026. There's been an all-action-packed week. We've seen back-to-back games in the Championship. We've seen back-to-back games in the Scottish Premier League. Some exciting news there for some Australian fans as well. And also, too, we've seen love is in the air, Chief. We had Sam Kerr and Christy Muse tie the knot on New Year's Eve in Perth at a venue in Swan Valley. And also caps off a great year for the couple who also seen the arrival of their son Jagger on the 9th of May for 2025. So they said, what a night for a party. And they've seen out 2025 tying the knot to start the new year fresh on 2026. We've also, Chief, got the Flyers, but Melbourne Victories, no matter what got thrown at them that night, they've hit 4 on the bounce, and some exciting news there as well. So like you said, Chief, it's all happening. And let's get straight into it because we've got some overseas action.
Well, let's hope Sam Kerr brings some of that good fortune into the Asian Cup in a couple of months' time as well. But as you said, let's head overseas. Some exciting performances in the Championship. Let's start with our star man, Nestory Irankunda, who's on a bit of a streak of form at the moment. He is coming off the bench, but he's definitely having an impact. He assists Watford's late winner over Norwich to move them into the playoff spots. Beautiful first touch, knock it around his defender, use that raw speed of his, but also had the composure to cut it back to his strike partner for the winner. So amazing scenes there for Irankunda. And of course, he backs it up again. Watford getting a superb 3-0 win over Birmingham. Irankunda providing another assist, showing some blistering pace and touch, then the composure to pass to set up Ince for his hat-trick for the finish and lifts Watford up to 4th, also 4 straight wins to sit 3 points off the automatic promotion spot. So he's certainly a man in some form. As I said, he is coming off the bench, but I think his new manager there at Watford is getting the most out of him, and that can only be positive news for the Socceroos.
Oh, smiles back on the face, Chief. And the way I seen the interview after the game, he looks refreshed and rejuvenated after that mini break that he had. And look, that first touch and step off, that speed that he showed was just dynamic. And what I really loved about that run was just at the end, like you said, just the composure to cut it diagonally across when he probably could have shot, probably could have passed right, but he just found that perfect ball at full pace, which was quite exciting to watch. And it's just good to see him, like I said, back with that smile.
Oh, look, 24 months ago, that run from Irankunda probably would have resulted in a shot on goal, and we know he's got that in his locker as well. But as you said, the composure to find the space for Ince to complete his hat trick, and the Watford fans are absolutely buzzing about him and a couple of the other youngsters, particularly the ones that they've brought in the off season. So positive signs ahead for Nestory Irankunda. Another player in some good form in the Championship at the moment is Adrian Segecic. He provided the assist in Portsmouth's first goal in their dramatic 2-1 win over Charlton. Looked like they'd thrown away their lead only to hit back deep into stoppage time. So, good for Segecic to be a part of that. And Hayden Matthews also started in that one. Unfortunately, they couldn't carry that form into the weekend. The emotion was short-lived. Pompey got smashed 5-0 by Bristol City. Segecic played a full game in that one. Hayden Matthews came on at the 62nd minute when they were 4-0 down already, but was injured and replaced in the 90th minute. So fingers crossed we don't have another injury on our hands at Pompey, because Jacob Farrell, after his long-term injury, was back on the bench. So hopefully it's not 1 in, 1 out for our Pompey boys, and we can start getting some consistent game time for them.
Yeah, and they just sit 1 point above relegation. So very tight, Norwich winning their last game, and it's really tight down there at the moment. So it's going to be a very interesting watch. More games tonight in the championship, so it's all happening there this week, and they're more than halfway through the season now, so the games are still coming thick and fast.
Yep, and to finish off a hat trick of assists in the championship during the week, we've got Callum Elder, who provided the assist for Derby's opener. They unfortunately went down 2-1 to Leicester in that one, but very nice overlapping run from Elder, and then cut it back nicely for the finish. They turned that result around, though, later in the week in the All-Aussie clash, beating Borough 1-0. Borough dominated, but Callum Elder played a full game in that one, creating some good chances. Borough's Sammy Silvera came on in the 76th minute, but the result leaves Borough without a win in 4 games, and they dropped to third. They were really pushing Coventry at a point for the league lead, but they've hit definitely a dip in form. Derby consolidate to 11th, 5 points away from the all-important 6th place. So, yeah, very tight championship table, but unfortunately Borough have slid in recent times, which is unfortunate. I think they had hit a bad run of form, unfortunately.
Yeah, ever since McGree's been injured, they've swan dived, and the confidence has gone out of them a bit. But we've seen like that with Watford on the opposite hand. They were like mid-table down the lower half of it, and then bang, they got 4 in a row. So Middlesbrough's just taking the heat out of their run that they had, obviously in 2025. But hopefully they can bounce back. They're playing tonight again, so we wish them all the best. Sammy Silvera obviously still a bit part player there, and we're still no news really on Riley McGree's return either.
Elsewhere, Cameron Burgess starts and keeps a clean sheet. I mean, Swansea's 1-0 win during the week, and he followed it up with another 1-0 win over West Brom. Cameron Burgess playing a full game in that one with 12 defensive contributions, including six clearances, and winning all his ground duels, helping Swansea move away from the relegation and up to 16th. So, yeah, positive news over at Swansea. It was a massive 6 points for them during the week. Another team that's down toward the bottom of the championship, unfortunately, is Blackburn. Clean sheet during the week for Lewis Miller's Blackburn, who drew 0-0 with Sheffield Wednesday. I'm sure they would have been hoping to get a win out of that one against bottom place Sheffield Wednesday. And then on Friday, they go down in a tense physical encounter, losing 2-0 to Wrexham. Lewis Miller playing full game in that one, picking up a yellow, keeps Blackburn in 20th position, only 3 points above the relegation zone. We watched a bit of this one together the other night, didn't we, mate? And pretty erratic, full-on game. The tackles are flying in, as you'd probably expect in the championship. But Lewis Miller probably played pretty well in that one, but it was very chaotic, wasn't it?
Oh, it's a bit dour too with the football, but like you said, it was a real physical contest. Wrexham got off to a fly, didn't they? And Blackburn just can't seem to create many opportunities, and I really don't like their style of play at the moment. I think they're banking themselves on not conceding, as you've seen in the previous couple of games where they got some draws. But unfortunately, when they concede an early goal, they just put too much pressure on themselves, and they just don't have that punch or counter attack to threaten teams, and it's really hurting them. And they're going to have to address it in January because, like I said, they're in 20th position and way too close to that bottom 3.
Yeah, last one in the championship. Unfortunately, no time for Sammy Silvera as Borough lose 1-0 to Hull. So, yeah, on a really poor run of form, Middlesbrough dropping down a league to the League One. We had Torres Francois and Rafael Borges Rodriguez both start in Wigan's 2-0 win. This was very interesting, mate, during the week. Frank Lampard was quoted during the week that he was very happy with how Rafael Borges Rodriguez's loan is going at Wigan. So, yeah, pleasing. Obviously, they've made the decision to send him out on loan, young player, to get him some game time. They look like pretty good chance, although their form hasn't been brilliant either, to go up to the Premier League. So it would be a very interesting decision to see what happens with Borges Rodriguez if they do go up to the Premier League. I doubt he'd kind of go into that Premier League squad, but he might have another loan on his hands or may look for a permanent deal. But good to hear from your manager at your club that's loaned you out that he's pleased it's going well.
Yeah, I think Frank spoke about him last year too in a few of the shows, and they realise there's a potential, but just at that age needs more game time and consistency in his football so he learns his craft. And I think you're spot on with your diagnosis there. He'll definitely be loaned back out. I'm pretty sure Coventry will still want to see him on the books, But there's plenty of opportunities in loans when you make the right move. And this one is perfect for him, isn't he? Like, I know Wigan's just below mid-table there, but it's not about that for him. It's about him developing his game and getting plenty of game time, which is exactly what's happening, which is a positive not only for Frank Lampard, but for Raphael himself.
Yeah, well, he had some injuries last season as well. So I think the most beneficial thing for him at the moment is that he gets a consistent run of games, and he's certainly getting that. At Wigan as well, they had another game over the weekend with a 1-1 draw with Barnsley. Borges Rodriguez getting 67 minutes and Torres Francois getting a full game. Over to Cardiff, Alex Robertson was a late sub in Cardiff's 2-1 win, keeping them top of the table. They then played out a 1-1 draw with Wickham. Alex Robertson subbed off early in the 28th minute. Now, originally we were fearful it might be an injury that's forced him off, but based on the comments we read, it looked like it was a tactical decision because he was a bit hot-headed during the game and probably to protect the player from a possible red card. So, yeah, interesting side of Alex Robertson that we obviously haven't seen with the Socceroos, but yeah, maybe that's something you need at times as well.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Chief, let's go to one of the most exciting and dramatic leagues that we have in UK and Europe right now, and that is in Scotland. And as we know, we've got plenty of Aussies represented in the Scotland Premier League. And aren't they all putting on a show over there? It's not just the clubs, it's the players, the fans, and the media. It is just absolutely crazy. So let's start off early in the week, and we've seen our Aussie goal scoring machine, Zac Sapsford, score his sixth league goal for Dundee United and his third in December alone, taking a man of match honours as Dundee United beat Livingston 3-1 midweek. Livingston, again, struggling in last spot, just can't get any run at the moment. We've seen, obviously, on the other side of the pitch, Ryan McGowan for Livingston unfortunately scores an own goal in this one. We had plenty of own goals last week. Another Australian following suit at the wrong end. Teddy Yangi comes off the bench in this one, but again, the spoils go to hotshot Sapsford as they push up the table with that win. Then they had the derby, and they were hot favourites with this one in Dundee, with Sapsford starting again. He played a full game, had a few half chances in this one, but probably just wrong decision making. You know, need to hit it first time, but took an extra touch, and then probably need to take a touch, but hit it first time. He just couldn't get that momentum. But it was the story of the night for Dundee United as Dundee took the spoils in this one in a 1-0 win. And unfortunately, Ryan Strain missed the game as well in this one as well. But the derby goes to Dundee, and Dundee United's good form comes to an end. And let's go over to Motherwell, a massive result. They just continue to drive forward, don't they, Motherwell, in midweek, inflicting one of the losses of the year for Celtic. And this is their fifth loss of the season for the Celtic, Glasgow.
We'll make that six. Make that six now.
Well, make that six now after, last night. We'll get to that one in a second. Motherwell's Johnny Katrumbas played a full game in the first game, obviously with Celtic, playing with a full game and 97% passing accuracy, as well as 100% tackles and duels won. This was exciting to see. Oscar Priestman played a strong 85 minutes in midfield. What a vote of confidence putting him in Priestman against Celtic, and didn't he perform well? And unfortunately, Stamatopoulos was unused sub in this one, but what a great result for Motherwell, putting more pressure on Celtic. We'll go back to Celtic in a minute, as you said, last night's game, but Motherwell then hosted St Mirren, and again, didn't disappoint, did they? They straight into action again. Oscar Priestman was a second half substitute in this one, the 73rd minute, and performed well, and Stamatopoulos was on the bench, but again, sees no minutes. No Johnny Katrumbas in this one, but Motherwell will win 2-0. This keeps them fourth now, but guess what? Only 2 points behind Celtic and Rangers, who are second and third equally. What a story this could be. Motherwell sneaking up and nearly there. There could be Hearts and Motherwell fighting it out. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but this is what's happening in Scotland, and this is why it's so dramatic. It's putting all sorts of pressure on Celtic and Rangers. All right, we better keep going. Back to midweek, we have to speak about Martin Ball's team, Hibs, but we've got some bad news in this one as Ball's subbed off just before half-time with a hamstring injury as Hibs beat Aberdeen 2-0. Jack Iredale plays the full 90 minutes, though, in that 2-0 win. Over the weekend, Jack Iredale starts again for Hibs and plays 52 minutes while Spall watches on as he recovers from his injury. But Hibs again get another win away to Kilmarnock and another impressive 3-1 victory sees them consolidate to fifth and stay within touching distance as well of Rangers and Celtic in second. So it's all happening. And I know there's no Aussies in the Celtic and Rangers camp, but we have to go back overnight to the title race of Celtic as they go down in the derby 3-1 to Rangers, giving Hearts a massive opportunity to extend their lead at the top of the table. And guess what? Up they come. Cam Devlin starts in the midfield and Hearts, bang, 1-0 win, gets a great goal in the first half, Hearts, and they knock off Livingston. Teddy Yangi did start this one, and McGowan did start as well for Livingston, but the honours going to the league leaders, and now they create a 6-point gap at the top of the table. All three Australians played this game with Hearts and Livingston in what is a defining week in Scottish football. We also seen overnight Suman Milanovic was on the bench for Aberdeen as they are away to Falkirk, and Milanovic gets on the 80th minute. Unfortunately, couldn't impact the game, and they fall 1-0 to Falkirk in what is an absolute stunning week in Scottish Premiership football. What do you make of all that in Scotland?
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? And as you said, it's so good that so many of our Aussies are competing right at the top. Yeah, we don't have a lot of information about Martin Boyle as yet, but hopefully that's not too long term. It'd be devastating for him to miss out on another World Cup. But yeah, as the table reads, we've got Hearts having played 20 matches on 44, Celtic having played 20 on 38, Rangers 20 on 38. Motherwell have played one game extra, 21, and they're on 36. And then Hibs played 21 on 34. There's a bit of a breakaway top five there, and 3 of the 5 involving our Aussie players, which is great. But what that actually means is that the race for that last spot, that 6 as the table splits, is pretty tight. We've got Dundee United 2 points behind Falkirk at the moment, and Aberdeen as well. So yeah, all very tight in Scotland. But yeah, what a race we might have toward the end of the season. And yeah, let's hope that both Hearts, Motherwell, and throw Hibs in there as well can keep pushing the big boys on and keep knocking them off. It'd be really good.
It's been 40 years since Celtic and Rangers anyone knocked them off the title, Chief, and Celtic's won it 4 years in a row prior to this. Rangers once, and then Celtic went on a massive run of 9 years. So this could be quite an incredible campaign what's looming for Hearts, and they're certainly got the upper hand at the moment, haven't they? No European football. They're playing Scottish Premier League week in, week out. It's a massive advantage for them. Celtic, obviously, still in Europe. They've got to recommence that shortly. Rangers are still in Europe, but look like they'll get knocked out. But, yeah, where do you go if you're a Celtic and Rangers fan? They're just in turmoil at the moment, aren't they? Rangers are on the rise, Celtic on the fall. But that was the opposite at the start of the year, and it's just getting more chaotic as the weeks go on. It's a breath of fresh air, though, isn't it? And like you said, to hear all the Australians having a massive impact, we couldn't be prouder here as football fans.
I think too, once the table splits and those top 6 are playing each other more regularly as well, that's when we're really going to find out who's going to rise to the top in that. Because at the moment, they're still kind of knocking off some of those teams toward the bottom. But yeah, it's going to be an absolute ding-dong battle. Hopefully we can have 4 if we can get Dundee United or Aberdeen to sneak in there. So we have 4 of the 6 teams represented with Aussies, and that would be really exciting as we come to the end of the season, and not just making up the numbers, potentially right in that title race, which would be really cool.
All right. Well, we've better wrap that up now. We've got some more Australians over in Italy, Chief, with Serie A.
Yeah, obviously, Alessandro Ciccardi, his Parma came from behind to secure a 1-1 draw against Sassuolo. Ciccardi played a full game, 8 defensive contributions, and on balance of play, both teams deserved a point. So, important point for Parma, lifts them further away from the bottom. I did just notice before we started recording, mate, that Christian Valpardo, who's a heavy point of topic of discussion. We had a nice photo there with Alessandro Ciccardi I wonder if he had a word in his ear about representing the Socceroos, or wonder where that one's at. But it would be very interesting to see where that's at. He certainly seems to be sitting on the fence based on his latest interviews, Christian Valpardo.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got some options, and well, look, it's in the end, it's his choice, isn't it? We wish him well, and well, look, we'll see what happens in the future. There's plenty of opportunities though for him. He's doing a good job over there, just like Sakati. So we wish him all the best.
Absolutely, mate. All right, heading over to China. They're obviously out of season at the moment, but there's plenty of movement in terms of Aussie coaches and ones with some Aussie links as well. So we mentioned last week that Ross Aloisi has signed with Zhejiang Professional. And if you believe the reports, it looks like John Aloisi might be going to Chengdu Rongcheng, who were battling it out with Shanghai Port toward the end of the last Chinese Super League season, and also Nick Montgomery, who former Central Coast Mariners manager and worked under Ange at both Spurs and at Forest. He's been linked to the Beijing Guan job, so it really shows the impact of what Kevin Muscat and then the ability of Ange Postecoglou to bring Aussie coaches into his systems and further develop them as well and create those pathways, doesn't it?
Well, they're all big clubs, isn't it? Fantastic recognition. John Aloisi, obviously winner with Western United. Nick Montgomery, a winner with Central Coast. Now got some more exposure overseas under Ange. He had a crack at Hibs as well. It's just the next level, isn't it? And it's exciting. Imagine four managers, not just four managers, but like four managers of top clubs over there. Like you've just rattled off pretty much the top four from last year. I know the Green Hats come seventh, but Ross has got a little bit of challenge there, but they finished third a few years ago. So yeah, it's exciting times and may open up a few little avenues and a few little markets for some other players maybe. And look, it definitely is a big stepping stone for them, but I think it's the right move at the right time. They've both all shown caliber. So yeah, it's just exciting that coaches are getting recognised at a different level.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on those rumours for those coaches that aren't quite confirmed yet, and we'll bring that to you if and when it is reported and becomes official. We just got a great question in regards to Mohamed Toure, mate, from Noel Hopper. So appreciate your question or your comment, Noel. It reads, so I really enjoy the podcast, so thank you for that. An additional topic could be a discussion regarding Mo Toure and whether he should leave Randers in this transfer window. So what do you think of that one from Noel, mate?
Well, that's a ripper of a question, isn't it? Now, let's look at what's going on. So, the first thing I checked out is whether Adelaide United have a sell-on clause. And apparently, according to the news that I found, is that they do. So, if there is a sale, which potentially could happen this summer or in the winter over there, Adelaide will get some type of profit for Toure. So I thought that was a good point. Now, if we're looking at a move, look, I've got some personal opinions on this. I've read the news that, Strasbourg, Chelsea, clubs in the Championship, USA, all want him, which is fantastic. He's a blue chip player. He's had an outstanding season. His team sit ninth at the moment, so, he's in the Danish league, so they've got some work to do. But the key point for me is he's been playing. Do you risk that and go halfway through into a European calendar? New tactics, you've got to break your way into the team. It's a massive risk in the World Cup year where I would personally think that the next 6 months he'd be personally better off staying with Randers. Only because if I look at the leagues, USA, the Championship, they're physically leagues. We've seen him battle injuries before. Could he sustain that amount of football in the physical leagues? I'm not too sure. So I think it would be a risk on those points. I don't doubt his talent. He's an absolute talent. And you can see the potential, which is why he's getting the noise around him. And I definitely do want to see him move in the future. But I think it's a little bit too early going into a World Cup year. If he takes the risk and doesn't play, or he's got to try to break into that team, it's a risk, isn't it? And I don't want to see him take that risk just before a World Cup window. And especially with his body, I want to see his body right, and I want to see it consistently. He's been capped in the last couple of years 8 times for Australia, scoring 3 goals. He's played 48 games for Randers for 12 goals, 9 assists. So he's definitely in form, and he's definitely showing at that age at 21. But I really think keep developing and make the move another 6 months, because you go to the World Cup, he has another good year World Cup. I think more options then come about, not only for himself, but for the kick-on for Adelaide, but I really would like to see him on the world stage in a World Cup before he makes that next move.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add to what you've said because I tend to agree with a lot of it. He does have his brother Musa there at Randers with him, and by all reports, that's made him really happy to have his brother there and really content. And you can see they've started some games together, so that's a nice, brotherly connection that they've got there. And I don't know that there's a particular rush for him to move. I tend to agree in terms of he's settled there at Rounders. He knows he's pretty much going to get starts and gain lots of game time from now until the World Cup. So, do you really want to take that risk and go to a club where you're going to have to learn all the new processes? And we've seen so many times in the past when players go to a World Cup, how their valuation just goes up. Look, they don't have to tend to do a lot, and we hope that he does a lot and score some goals at the World Cup from a Socceroos perspective. But players don't have to do a lot at the World Cup to be noticed for their valuation to go up, and probably more options for him to look at as well. So I wouldn't recommend him going this window, but certainly I think his ceiling is well above what he's doing currently in Norway, and definitely options of France or England. I probably wouldn't want to see him in the MLS because I just think he's at a higher standard. I would want him to stay in Europe, but I think not this window, but certainly post World Cup, I would like to see him get a move.
I think too, when players move, and you've seen this with a lot of Australians because of our window over here, when they seem to go with a pre-season behind them and play the friendlies leading into the season, we seem to see players do better. I think any move, and you can even see this at the top clubs, players really struggle to move and succeed from January onwards. It takes time to settle, but again, I think it's a massive compliment that he's getting this much noise, especially from the high-profile clubs, that they see that potential in him, and we could be looking at the next generation here, like we've been saying for probably the last 12 months with Irankunda and Toure, to the ones that break through what we've been looking for players at top clubs. So this could potentially roll out, and this is why he just has to be a bit smart with his move, because you've really got to go at the right time in Europe, don't you? Because it can fall bad pretty quick.
Yeah, and look, January transfers tend to be out of desperation to plug holes, or if a team's looking at relegation, or they're looking for that little bit extra into the squad to go for a title or promotion or something like that. So it tends to be a bit of panic moves rather than strategic moves, I think. So yeah, look, again, I just think it's much smarter for him to wait, because by all accounts, it looks like he's got a decent situation there at Randers. So yeah, I think we're kind of I don't think we need to say anything further. We want him to just stay and move post World Cup.
Super question though, Noel. Thank you for your participation. That was awesome to talk about these points because, I've got no doubt we'll be talking more about Toure in the next 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Noel. All right, mate. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the under-23 squad, which was announced during the week for the under-23 Asian Cup, which kicks off in a couple of days' time this Thursday. So a bit of a mix of overseas players and some in the A-Leagues. A few that I wanted to pick out just in terms of those overseas players: Lewis Agosti, Giuseppe Bovolina, Jed Drew. Awesome to see him back from his back injury. Stephen Hall. Who else we got there? James Overy, of course, playing over there at Manchester United. Jalen Pearman's come over from QPR. Arias Piol from Real Salt Lake, and Marcus Eunice as well. So really good to see some of those boys come back from overseas, and they're all kind of dealing with different situations. But good to see them coming back for this tournament. But we've got some good A-League representation as well. So what did you make of the overall squad, mate?
Yeah, no, look, it's exciting just to see these boys get together for a tournament. It's a extremely difficult window, isn't it? You've got players playing in competitions that are still going. It's not FIFA date windows, so you've seen many feedback on country versus club and vice versa, and who would have been picked and should have been picked and maybe not have been allowed to go because of certain other commitments. So it would have been an extremely difficult squad to pick and select to see the end product. But I think, look, I think I look at who's got the not just a tournament, because it's a great tournament under 23s to test ourselves. But yeah, look, there's probably a few little players there that are X factors in the Socceroos. And I'm super excited to see Jed Drew return from injury and push his claims. He's been a stalwart for the under 23s in the last couple of years, scoring a lot of goals. And his move made a breakout season this year. It's a shame he's been injured for a little bit, but yeah, they're exciting to see him. But really looking forward just to getting these boys exposed and looking forward to the competition. They play Thailand on Thursday, January the 8th, so this week, so exciting. And then they play China on the 11th and Iraq on the 14th. So there, look, let's hope we can win it. And yeah, let's see what these players can offer. And yeah, exciting times ahead. It's always exciting, isn't it, when the Socceroos are in town, and even at it's the under 23s. We'd love to see that next generation come through.
Yeah, pretty decent time slots as well, with all the group games kicking off at 10:30. A little bit later than you prefer, but definitely doable. And I think you're right in terms of the Socceroos auditions, because Jed Drew was certainly in conversations before his back injury at Hartberg, and we've seen James Overy being called up in the latest window as well. So potentially, if they have some great tournaments there, they're going to be in some calculations for Tony Popovic. Let's address the elephant in the room, mate. Let's talk about the A-League clubs and what they've done in terms of releasing players, because plenty of conversation around that, and some clubs releasing players and some not. What do you think's the ideal situation in terms of how we look at these tournaments as a country?
Well, in previous campaigns, there's been a clear statement that if they're picked and selected, then they should go. All of a sudden, we've got into a little bit of a row where you see the clubs like Adelaide United, who are fully fledged behind it, send anyone, whoever gets picked, and that's good for them. And then you see some real difficult moments where, like, whose choice is it? Is it the player, the club, the coach? Yeah, and it's a very awkward situation, isn't it? And how can you say if you're selected, how could you deny someone that opportunity at under 23 Socceroo level? Like, this is like the next step. So I think, look, the A-League, you don't get relegation, you don't get promotion, you get league and playoffs, I get that. But I think the bigger picture for Australian football is if they were selected, then they should have gone. There's enough young talent around to fill gaps. I know coaches want their full squad, and I can fully understand being a coach that, you want your best of your best. Look, the only probably exception that I probably have would be if Asian Champions League was interfering, but it's not. So I'm pretty disappointed the fact that I'm pretty sure the blueprint was if no player would be held back, but it seems to me that we've hit a bit of a conundrum. And I guess what makes it even harder for the defence of the ones that have held them back is some players are getting poached in January transfer windows, so the immediate cover's probably not there. Who they put on the field, and it's their jobs at risk, isn't it? So, but again, we're thinking of the bigger picture, and clubs are going to be, I think, a wider and be more broader with their decision making. But I understand both circumstances. It's an extremely difficult decision for all parties, and it's definitely had a major talking point and impact, hasn't it?
I think it just needs to be a consistent rule, or consistent point. And I think what you're saying in terms of, are there exceptions? Yeah, maybe sometimes, but I also think it sends the wrong message to the player as well. Like you obviously have the club's got the best interests of the club and wanting to develop and do well and that kind of thing. But if you're denying a player the opportunity to go and represent their country, I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Agree.
And we don't know the
Agree.
inner workings of all these things. We don't know, who approaches who and the conversations. But yeah, it's just disappointing that some clubs seem to support it and other clubs haven't. So look, I'm watching the Central Coast Mariners play Adelaide at the moment, and Adelaide released 3 of their players, and they're currently down 4-0. So it just goes to kind of speak volumes. And Central Coast have released players as well. They've got 2 there at least, with Perech, Cullen, and Nathan Paul. But I think it just needs to be consistent across the board. And maybe, like, if you have 5 or 6 players from a club, maybe it's a cap, or maybe you cap it at 3, so clubs aren't completely stripped apart. But I just think it needs to be a consistent rule. And this again comes back to the relationship between Football Australia and the APL, and then therefore the clubs, to make sure that there's a working relationship there to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future.
Well, we've all known the dates. So where's the foresight to say a week break? Why can't we double up games later in January when they return? Like, I don't know. We're just got to look at more opportunities rather than putting people in difficult situations to make decisions. We've made it awkward. That's where the leadership needs to be. It needs to be clear. We've seen winter breaks for some UK, European nations. We see some go all the way through. But like, if we know this window is here, which we've known for a long time, it's not just a surprise, then surely there needs to be a contingency plan before the rules are set out and everybody's clear on the picture, rather than, leaving it up to every individual club, because you're never going to get everyone aligned to one rule. So you've just got to make the rule, don't you, if you're the leaders of the competition. So I don't think it would have hurt if we could have played up to this week to New Year's, doubled up around Christmas, and then had a week off. Just show some foresight. Think of these things and innovate rather than ending up with a problem all the time. And maybe they only they still miss games, but they don't miss the whole week. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but then it's balanced out at least. Again, we just need foresight and innovation to come up with solutions rather than be the end product and where everyone's arguing because who's gone where. Like, I feel sorry for Adelaide being 4-0 down, but you know what? Hats off to you for letting those players go, because I know if I was a player, I'd be wanting to be on the plane.
Yeah, look, Adelaide's got a great reputation for developing a lot of Australian players that have come through the youth ranks as well. So, yeah, you if you're a player, I think, and that's your ambition, I think that's the type of club that you're going to go for. But yeah, very interesting. We'd love to hear the thoughts of our listeners on that one, because it's a topic that I'm sure has lots of different opinions. But yeah, we look forward to following the tournament. As I said, this starts this Thursday with the first game against Thailand. So yeah, it'll be very interesting watching and to see some of those players that we might not see as often, and maybe some pushing their case for the Socceroos. But right, mate, let's go to the A-League men's competition. There was an absolute cracking game on Thursday to kick off 2026 with the 10-man Jets making it back-to-back wins in New Zealand over Auckland FC. This is absolutely unbelievable. So let's run through some of the things that happened in the match. So Alex Battleado got injured with his knee in the first 5 minutes, replaced by Will Dobson. It's a suspected ACL, according to reports. Let's hope it's not the case, because he's such a fantastic player, but didn't look good. But yeah, fingers crossed for Battleado that it's not too bad. But didn't seem to hamper the Jets too much. They opened the scoring in the 7th minute with Lockie Rose getting on the end of a Clayton Taylor cross, finishing from close range. Auckland then hit back in the 13th minute when Jesse Randall beat James Delianov at his near post from a wide free kick. Newcastle then take the lead back in the 16th minute when Clayton Taylor wins possession, drives forward, and has his shot saved, very similar to what he did last week, actually. Saved by Michael Voward, and Will Dobson, the substitute, puts the rebound in. Maxi Cooper was then received his second yellow card in the 21st minute for a late challenge on Sam Cosgrove. So a bit happening in that first 21 minutes, mate. The Jets held out until half-time, made some defensive changes, in order to try and hold on to their lead. Auckland had plenty of the ball in the second half, 81% possession, 14 shots, but the Jets held out. A few shaky moments from James Delianov throughout the game, but he did enough to limit them to one goal. Max Burgess had a great chance that fell onto his left foot. Unfortunately, Christian Bracco as well went down late in the game. It looked like a bad injury for him as well. So the Jets ended up finishing the game with 9 men. But in the dying minutes, Michael Voward came up for a corner. Lockie Rose had it clear, sprinted down the field, played in by Mark Natter, rolled the ball into an empty net. The goal was given, then it was ruled out for offside, and then VAR overturned it and was given a goal. Jets 3-1. What an absolute cracker of a game, and I have no idea how the Jets held on, and especially how they even added a third goal. But well done to them. That's 3 wins in the past 4 weeks over in New Zealand, including 2 over Auckland FC, which just doesn't happen at all, mate.
Mate, they're hot and cold, aren't they? But I'll tell you what, they might move all their games over to New Zealand the way they're going over there. They they played in a waterlogged pitch in Auckland in the first place, and then Auckland brought out the sun, but then put on the water slides in the water park to entertain the fans, which I thought was a great idea. And then, wow, what about the Jets' resilience in this one? But geez, they showed some character again, showing the potential that they have. Again, it's a consistency thing for them, isn't it? But they're a young side, so you can expect this. And beating Auckland like twice, unbelievable. Who have been red hot all last year and this year. And then the funny stat is, like, at the end, Auckland have still never won an A-League game after conceding the first goal. Can you believe that? They've been top of the table both years, and when they've conceded the first goal, wow, they can't seem to break teams down. So an extraordinary stat. I know probably the newness of this side has probably contributed to that, but yeah, what a fantastic win again for Newcastle, and the way they've done it, incredible performance. And Auckland will rue this one because they really should have controlled this game with their football, but they couldn't due to the Jets' resilience. It was fantastic to see.
I think that's the right word in terms of resilience, because we have seen the Jets be so leaky at the back at times. But yeah, the first game there over in Auckland, and now this one where they've just kind of got stuck in and defended for their lives and done everything they needed to. I think that's just going to contribute so much to this group. And we know they have so much upside, so many youngsters that are performing so well. And yeah, let's hope we see more of that from the Jets.
All right, mate, let's go over to back home to Victory. There's Perth. If you got your aero guard on for this one, Chief, the Flyers were out, the fans were out, everyone was out. It was all happening. And Perth, after staying in Melbourne after being City during the week, got off to a fast start with Trent Osler capitalising on early possession and territory, sliding in his shot past Jack Duncan for a 1-0 lead. And then the excitement just continued for Perth, but unlucky. Tom Lawrence then had a goal correctly ruled out, and Miranda was forced off through injury. They probably should have been up 2-0. I know the offside was correctly a correct decision, but then they had some great chances, didn't they? They had several chances to double their lead again, particularly when Aaron Suleiman went through one-on-one but failed to get the ball past Jack Duncan. If that would have gone in 2-0, I could see a totally different complex in this game. But the young fella missed it, and geez, what a costly miss. Victory then, it was like a change after that miss. They totally dominated the football after that and worked their way back into the game. They ended in the last 15 of the first half, the stronger team, and Luis Dorigo scoring with the last kick of the first half, cracking goal for the Victory. And yeah, it was a great equaliser. And then Victory obviously come out again, continuing their dominance, and took the early lead in the second half when Jan Mata, who had some great chances in this game, found an unmarked Valupale who was just on fire, deflected his volley and flew in for a 2-1 lead. Melbourne extended their advantage, and they were all over Perth. Perth just could not get the foot on the ball, and Dennis Genru was chased down the lost cause, getting a ball to Mata, who found Santos to make it 3-1. Wasn't that Dennis Genru? If you can see those highlights, that just goes to show never give up. Perth switched off and they got punished. Santos made it 3-1, and Victory in cruise control. But like we've seen in some of these A-League games this week, Victory thought they were cruising, but then Luke Amos picked the pocket of Dennis Genru, so he's done all that hard work and then fell asleep, and then slid the ball into Nago, who, oh, geez, I love this finish. How good was this finish? Neat touch and then finish with the outside of the foot to make it 3-2. And Glory threw plenty at the Victory late, but they held on for a 3-2 win. Their fourth in a row, and no doubt that the team of the Victory will be going back to Woolies to get some more aero guard this week, because there was plenty of flies around, but they got the 3 points. And more importantly, that's 4 in a row and 5 undefeated, and they've shot up to 5th.
Do you think that was the key to the victory, making sure the Flyers stay away with the aero guard? That's what got them over the line.
Well, change their game. But we can't forget, we'll just touch quickly on the earlier game during the week, because Victory had a midweek game versus Wellington, and didn't they smash them 5-1? This was just total contrast from Wellington, which we'll talk about in a minute. Early in the week, Victory tore Wellington apart 5-1 with Virgos bagging a hat-trick. take him equal goal scorer in the A-League. Santos and Jelic also added second half goals to put some exclamation marks on the win. Wellington Phoenix, whose goal come through Naran, they had no answers for the victory despite a tactical shift. They were absolutely played off the park. So a great week for Melbourne Victory. But then when you thought the tide had turned, Chief, and you thought Wellington was a basket case, look what happened up in Redcliffe.
That's why you can never predict this league, mate, because it's ups and downs and all kinds of chaos that goes on. Because Brisbane, who had a good result during the week, they were out at Redcliffe Stadium, massive crowd out there, reports of something like 8.5 or closer to 9,000. Fantastic support for the home team. And unfortunately saw their men's team go down 3-0 despite playing the majority of the game against 10 men. Mafenya Eze opened the scoring after a defensive mix-up. Saw him one-on-one with Dean Bazanis, and he made no mistake. Brisbane had a nice chance to equalise through a Lucas Harrington header, which was well saved. And then it all kicked off. Carlo Armiento was sent off in the 38th minute with a sliding tackle, which sparked a bit of a brouhaha in the middle of the field. But Justin Vidic then hit the post early in the second half. But it was Wellington who scored next through Kazuki Nagasawa's shot from distance, evading Dean Bazanis. And then similar to what we saw with Auckland, they did have a keeper in the goal mouth though. But as Brisbane pushed for a goal, Wellington caught them on the break. Luke Brooks-Smith was in one-on-one on goal, but unselfishly laid it off for Pala Retre to ice a delicious Wellington cake, mate. It was their first win of the season away from home, moves them up to 8th. So every time we write them off, they just come back and they just keep chipping away. This was Brisbane's first home loss of the season. It keeps them 3rd, but a win, given the results in the other games, would have sent them top of the league.
Wow.
This is also Lucas Harrington's last game after the Raw, so a sad note to leave on for him.
I just cannot understand how they lost this game. It was just a weird game, wasn't it? It's but hats off to Wellington. They shell shocked them. I think I don't know if Brisbane just underrated Wellington because of what happened midweek, or thought they were just going to be a little bit fatigued. But geez, they just weren't there mentally, were they? And geez, it cost them. Normally Brisbane's strength are their mentality, but it was definitely missing against Wellington. And Wellington, I think, just had nothing to lose. And again, when the player got sent off, I just thought that Brisbane just thought things were just going to happen, and it just didn't. And Wellington just shocked them, and wow, they'd be ruin those points. Yeah, fancy that. They would have gone top of the table. Wow, that's just crazy.
Few Brisbane fans I've seen today quite concerned about some of their previous, not so much results, I'd say, but performances. And yeah, a bit worried that they might see a bit of a return to what they saw last season. So hopefully that's not the case for the Raw fans, because it has been nice to see them chipping away more towards the top of the table than the bottom.
Yeah, look, I think it's more learning, isn't it, with this team? I think that's probably a bit harsh that they've overachieved and done really well. I think it's credit to them that they had the opportunity to go top, but still you've got to learn those few little things, aren't you? They haven't consistently succeeded like the Aucklands and Melbourne cities of the past. So, but they'll learn that, and look, that they're still in a great position, aren't they? And they've just got to learn through those mistakes. And what better way than when you get beat like that.
Yep. Earlier in the week, Brisbane Roar did get a 2-1 win over the Mariners. It was a fiery New Year's Eve clash, and it had nothing to do with the fireworks. In front of a good crowd of over 10,000 at Gosford. So it's really become a bit of an event, that New Year's Eve fixture at Gosford, which is nice to see a good turnout for the Mariners. Michael Valkanis was sent off towards the end of the first half for being a bit cheeky to referee Alex King, and tensions were carried into the tunnel at half-time, with Mariners interim coach Warren Moon calling the actions of Brisbane Roar staff embarrassing post-game. And Warren Moon, previous coach and player at the Brisbane Roar, knows plenty about the Brisbane Roar. The game itself saw Michael Roos open the scoring with his first of the season before Lucas Moragas levelled things up in the 29th minute. As the game looked like it was heading for a draw, J.S. Shea delivered a peach of a cross. That was an absolute beauty to find Justin Vidic on the far post to head home. So the Mariners haven't won since round 4, but based on the 4-0 result that I'm currently looking at. That looks likely to change. But they've been linked to several players in the January transfer window, so I think that's going to help to strengthen their squad, which is very good for the Mariners, because I think they just need a little bit of reinforcement. But tell you what, mate, this result that I'm currently looking at 4-0 to the Mariners against Adelaide with 17 minutes to go, that lifts them off the bottom of the ladder. And you know what that means about who's bottom.
Tell us, Chief.
Wanderers.
They had some hard lessons to learn, haven't they? We've talked about them all year, underachieving and their problems. So before we get into the Wanderers game against Macarthur, what were your thoughts on Warren Moon's and Valkanis' opinions of the clash? Plenty have been talked about this one. Who's right, who's wrong, or what's your personal opinion on the matter?
It's probably hard to know given we weren't in the tunnel. Yeah, I probably don't want to speculate too much on it without knowing the facts. I know that after Warren Moon's comments post-game with the Paramount Plus team, the Brisbane Roar then put out a statement the following day. So, yeah, it's probably a bit hard to know exactly. We know that Brisbane Roar have been towing that line this year, and potentially that's just boiled over a little bit into the sheds with Valkanis' sending off not too long before halftime. But it's probably just a bit hard to say, I would think.
Okay, good stuff. All right, let's break it down then. The Wanderers versus Macarthur. So quite a lacklustre game, this one, with a nice piece of skill from Rafa Duran being the difference in this one, as he curled a beautiful right foot shot and was too good for Lawrence Thomas in goal for the Wanderers. The Wanderers' probably best moments come through Brillante and Thurgate, with the latter coming close on several occasions, including hitting the post late. Kraev also missed a great second half chance for the home side. But the pressure continues to mount on Sadic, and he's quite defensive about it as well in the pre-comments again. Which player, obviously, should the Wanderers look to get in the transfer window is probably the biggest question mark. There's talk about players leaving also as well, getting in the transfer market, so some of their better players as well. I'm not sure your opinion on that one, Chief, but I just wanted to also to add that the Macarthur Bulls, after this game, have drawn Bangkok United in the ACL round of 16 two-leg tie to be played in February. Bangkok United currently fifth in Thai Premier League, so they've got a great round of 16 tie there to go up against, and they'll have Mitch Duke for that one as well. So I think that's a fantastic tie in Asian Champions League too. But back to the Wanderers, what they need to do in the transfer market, mate, or apart from the obvious question, who can they target?
Well, I think that's the thing, though. Like I know that XG, is a stat that some people will take as gospel and other people will kind of just dismiss as well. But if you can see it as evidence in the games that they're playing as well, there's so many games where they maybe dominate early and don't score, or they have chances throughout the game and don't score. So I think a clinical striker could do them the world of good. And I think Sage's post game, he was very kind of trying to deflect the questions in terms of pressure on him and things like that. And it is interesting when you hear Valkanis saying comments like, it's just about winning. It doesn't really matter how you do it. It's about the points on the board. And I don't think Sages was trying to get around it. He knows that they haven't scored enough goals to be competitive. But yeah, I think you can see it in the games that they play, that if they are able to finish even half of those chances that they've got, they wouldn't be anywhere near last place. But the fact is that they're not. And we were talking over the weekend that we thought Cassini Yengi would be a good pickup. Now he's come out and said he's not coming back to the A-League. He's obviously getting limited time in at Aberdeen, but that profile of striker, I think, would be kind of perfect for them. That probably a bit bigger body and someone to get on the end of some crosses or to link up with some of their midfielders. And I think if majority of the chances are coming through Brillante and Thurgate, that's probably a concern. We have seen them score goals over the years, but they're not going to give you the type of return that you're going to need. And we know all the players they lost in the off season, but they just haven't replaced them adequately. Whether they can get someone in January and turn their season around, I do hope so for the Wanderers fans, because it's not Don't know. It feels a bit weird to see them down the bottom of the league when they should have so much more promise.
Oh, it'll hurt them, no doubt, but they've got a job to do in January, and that's fix their number one problem. Like I said, you don't want Crave and Thurgate in the box, relying on them to put goals away. That's the jobs of the tens and the wingers and the nines, isn't it? And they're supposed to complement that, not be the main people in that box, and probably why they've been a bit hit and miss with the XG. But anyway, Chief, we'll talk about a few players that potentially might be available from an Australian Championship point of view in a minute. But we've got one more game to wrap up, and very curious what your thoughts are with the setup of Sydney FC in this one. I thought it was quite strange and copped a bit of media about it as well, but Tale deflected off. But Melbourne City to Sydney drew 0-0. A scoreless draw is one that Melbourne City dominated and not able to get past a real stubborn Sydney FC. I did look at their lineup, Sydney FC, and I thought, oh, geez, this could be a really cracking game. But Sydney FC just didn't want to get out of the Juventus mode, did they? Defensive mode, backs to the wall. But anyway, Devonish Mears, great goalkeeper that he is, saved 9 saves, while Patrick Breach saved 4 of his own. Melbourne had 60% possession, 302 passes in the opposition half. Yes, 302 in the opposition half. And Sydney only had 93. It was great to see Paul Ocon Jr. return to Sydney FC, while Raul Ramani, limped off at the end with a knee injury, which is a very serious one. It didn't look good at all for City. A win, though, would have moved City into the top 6, as they just can't seem to break the winning circle at the moment. Instead, they are 9th, having not won in 4. And then Sydney, dour Sydney, I must say, remains 2nd. Was it a strategic ploy just to park the bus?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because that game against Auckland FC getting postponed, they would have had plenty of rest. I know they're missing some of their key players as well, but yeah, it was obviously a intentional approach to try and keep a clean sheet in this one and maybe see if they could jag a goal at the other end. But yeah, very poor run of form for Melbourne City. They did have all these home games in a row, but haven't been able to capitalise on that at all. And it almost feels like we're waiting for them to get going. They've had a few injuries, but other clubs have too. But yeah, they just can't seem to get it together at the moment. So yeah, look, yeah, as I said, it was a clear run of home games. No Asian Champions League elite to deal with, but yeah, just haven't been able to put it together. And funnily, it was the Melbourne Derby where Victory came in with some pretty poor form, and they've won that one, and they've gone on an upward trajectory, and City's fallen away.
Yeah, crazy times. Anyway, it'll be a big couple of games for Melbourne City. The next one to see if they can bounce back. All right, Chief, you've got another question.
Yeah, this one's from Sean. Thank you, Sean, for the question. He wanted to know if we thought there were any potential signings we'd like to see from the NPL or the Australian Championship to the A-League. So we went through a few of the teams in the Australian Championship for a couple of players we thought might be able to solve some problems for the A-League clubs. So we did speak about Wanderers lacking goals, but Manny Aguek didn't seem to have any issues with that during his time in the Australian Championship with South Melbourne. So thought he might be a decent pickup for one of the teams. Max Mikula, fantastic player, but also that long throw, and we've seen that come into vogue so much in modern football. But that could be an absolute weapon on set pieces for a team to pick up Max Mikula. Ali Orgler looks like he's going to the Mariners based on reports, which would be a very handy pickup for the Mariners as well. Marcus Humbert of Heidelberg, he's currently with the under-23 squad, but yeah, he'd be a handy pickup in the midfield. Oscar Gonzalez, probably a bit of a left field one, 16-year-old for Apia, who was full of energy and probably one of those players that just plays with no fear. It'd be exciting to see him in the A-League, and I don't know if we will, mate. He might be one of these ones that heads overseas before we even see him in the A-League. He looks a real talent, that one. Drayden Kelly, the player of the Australian Championship, the whole tournament, he's a centre-back, and yeah, there's probably a few clubs that could use a handy centre-back. And Seita Murai for Moreton City, he was absolutely dynamic in a few of their games in the latter stages of that tournament. Very creative, knows where the goal is as well. But yeah, there's probably a few players there that we thought might be pretty handy.
Yeah, there's definitely some talent out there, isn't there? And we've got, one more that's a little secret after that we heard from one of our viewers as well. So they're exciting players, all of them, and they all add different qualities that could definitely support. But look, the championship was fantastic, wasn't it, to unearth these players? So why not give them a crack? They're certainly delivering at that level. All right, buddy. A-League Women's. Let's wrap it up for the Ninja A-League team.
All right, the Sabitra Bandari effect rolls into Western Sydney as the Phoenix beat the Wanderers 3-0. The Nepalese star scored one, and she set up another in the big win. It was awesome to see when she scored. She ran straight over to the Nepalese/Wellington fans in attendance, and yeah, it's just I think we must speak about this every week, but it's amazing to see the effect that she's having on the A-League Women's competition. The defending champion Mariners, they scored a come from behind 3-2 win over Brisbane Roar with Annalise Rasmussen scoring either side of halftime. She's now joined Holly McNamara as the leading goal scorer in the A-League women's competition, so she's really in a good streak of form. The Wanderers recovered from their loss to Wellington with a 1-1 draw with Canberra United, only their 5th point from 9 games against the league-leading Canberra United. So even though they didn't get the win, quite an upset, that result. There were some cracking goals, mate, in the Brisbane versus Wellington match, including a screamer from Ava Piazza right up in the top corner where the keepers can't get it. We reposted that on X today, so if you haven't seen it, go to the Aussie game on X and check it out. Brisbane held a late 2-1 lead despite Wellington bombarding Brisbane's goal. In stoppage time, a miss-hit cross from Brooke Nunn floated in with the game ending 2-2. Reminded me, mate, of a goal that one of our players scored when you were coaching us in about under 17s, I reckon. A nice little miss-hit cross that floated in at the far post. Won't mention the player.
Goals and goal.
Yeah, true. In the late game on Saturday between Perth and the Jets, an early Isabel Dalton strike was enough to give Perth their 3rd home win from 4 games this season. And there were a couple of games today. The first one, Emily Condon scored the only goal as Adelaide upset the Mariners 1-0. And it was another 1-0 result to the home team when Chinaza Uchendu scored a second half goal to give Melbourne City the win over Sydney FC. What about this, mate? City are now 2nd, trailing Canberra by 2 points with 3 games in hand. We knew that there was going to be a backlog of games for Melbourne City, and they were just waiting in the wings there, and they've started to make up a few of these games, and they're climbing the ladder. I think they're very good chance of going back-to-back premiers. But for their opponents today, Sydney FC, struggling this season again after having a shocker last season. They're second last at the moment, so not good signs for the Sydney FC women's team.
No, I tipped them to bounce back too with all that young talent, but may need a couple of years. You put me in my place with the Melbourne City Harlem Globetrotters, aren't they? The women, they're just stars, aren't they? They've got some great players. So well done to Melbourne City, and I'm sure Sydney FC will bounce back, and their young girls will not only learn from this, but grow in the future. All right, Chief, it's time for the team of the week.
All right, let's go. In the sticks, we got Harrison Devonish-Mears for his outstanding performance for Sydney FC against Melbourne City. Just playing a 3 at the back. We've gone very attacking this week, mate. Grace Johnson of Perth Glory for her outstanding performance over the weekend. Cameron Burgess, a couple of clean sheets here, and Callum Elder for his assists for Derby. Cam Devlin's going to have a lot of work to do in the midfield because not going to be much defence in front of him. Nestory Irankunda is going to play in front of him along with Adrian Segecic and Nishan Volupele. And then ahead of them, all the goal scorers, Zac Sapsford for his goal for Dundee United, Annalise Rasmussen for her 2 for the Central Coast Mariners, and how could we leave out Lockie Rose for his heroics for the Newcastle Jets against Auckland FC. You got a special Moppers super sub this week, mate.
I've got 2. Chief. I just want to.
You're bending the rules again.
I know. I'm extending the bench. Have to special mention to Bandiri, who scored a goal. The Nepalese star. I tell you what, Wellington Phoenix would probably have the entire 200,000 Nepalese community in Australia being a member of Wellington. but we also do have a special edition this week for Super Sub. So we're going to talk about, and thank you to our fans who led us to this player.
Sean.
Sean, yes. Yep, you're an absolute legend. Put us on this. Aamir Abdallah Yunus, a dual citizenship with Sudan and Australia. So he representing his country of birth, Sudan, born in Kassala, was playing for Green Gully in the NPL Victoria, who finished 8th. He moved to Avondale for the new season and also played for Hume City and Heidelberg in Melbourne. He scored the opening goal of the round of 16 clash against Senegal in the Africa Cup of Nations in the round of 16, playing against Mane, Jackson, Sarr, few names there, Chief, to name a few. They did end up losing 3-1, but what a story, scoring the first goal of the game of round of 16 in the African Nations Cup. What memories this is going to have, and also playing through the group stages. He played a full game against Burkina Faso and 72 minutes against Ecuador Guinea, where that was his debut for his country, and is now a fully fledged international player for Sudan, for the dual citizen of Australia as well. So what a story, and thank you, Sean, and all our listeners for sharing that video of Aamir, who's currently representing Sudan in the AFCON. What a great story, and top notes to you, Sean. You've made the show and made that special mention of a player that we weren't aware of in Aamir Abdul, who is currently representing Sudan.
Yeah, it's an awesome story. And look, there's plenty of good stories, I'm sure, in the NPL competitions, and we've seen a lot of them be brought to life in the Australian Championship. But no doubt, with his efforts on that huge global stage now, that Aamir Abdallah will be attracting plenty of interest. And yeah, let's hope that things go really well for him in the future and he continues to thrive in his professional football career. But yeah, what a bit of scouting from Sudan, and what a story for Aamir to get that opportunity to play at AFCON, an experience I'm sure he'll never forget.
Yeah, absolutely. That wraps up a massive week, Chief. What a week the end of the new year was and the start of the new year. Special shout out to obviously to Sam Kerr and Christy Muse, who we mentioned earlier on. Even though they got married and vice versa, at Crown Towers when they were checking out, still taking photos, signing autographs, even away when it's their time, they're still taking time out to promote the game and to share love to the fans. So a great week for them, and congratulations also to on their wedding. And what a fantastic week for the players in Scotland, Chief. It is on for young and old, and the A-League just keeps on turning up stories, doesn't it? So, wow, what a cracking week.
Absolutely, mate. There's some massive games in England overnight as well, and Germany, and a lot of the leagues are coming back, which is really cool. But the biggest one of all, mate, is the Mopper versus Chief Derby. And come on, Fulham, and let's get it done.
You're at home, mate, and we're all over the place this year, but I do wish you well. But I'm sure I'll be the one scouting tomorrow morning when this post goes live. But again, I wish your Fulham boys very well, even though there's no Australians. Or we did have a couple in the younger brigade, but they've moved on.
Yeah, I just hope you guys know where the back of the net is, because yeah, Fulham will be taking the spoils.
But big also too, Chief, apart from our little bit of fun, thanks for the viewers. There's some awesome questions and also some great parts in this week's show. So keep them coming, because we love talking about those kind of events that you see, and your eyes is as good as ours. So let us know if we've missed anything, because it's great topic to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, really appreciate all the feedback and all the support. So, all right, mate, that's going to do us for this week. It's been a massive week in Australian football. We've got a special that's going to drop midweek coming up that we recorded over the weekend. So keep your eye out for that one. But we'll be back recording on Sunday next week. In the meantime, enjoy football.
Yes, all the best, and I'll see you at 2 a.m, Chief.